Thank you so much for coming on, Ms. Bozoma Saint John. We are honored. Welcome to Voices of Color in Tech. As you know me, I'm Vion Anderson. And then we also have the lovely Vanessa Coakley, Miss Vanessa. I'll let her introduce herself. But again, thank you so much for taking your time to teach us how to boss up. We have more people coming in. This is like the biggest thing that's happened for our ERG. So everyone's hopping on and we're just so honored to have you.
Oh, it's great. It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Yes. Ms. Vanessa, did you want to say anything?
Hey, Boz. Hi, everyone. It's an honor to be here and to be on a platform with the famous Bozoma Saint John. We're just so blessed to be here and to sit at your feet and to learn, take part of all of the nuggets that you're going to be sharing with us today. So thank you so much.
I appreciate that. It's right. It's quite an honor. I'm like, I love spaces like this. And so I was pleased to say yes immediately and then try to figure out how we could do it. So
yeah,
really, I'm glad to be here and hope that I can impart whatever it is that we need on this Friday, to lead us into the weekend and then hopefully into a new season.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Come on, you already preaching. We're excited. Well, when you know me, you know I'm extra. So I had to do a little something here. We got a little intro slide. So y'all, welcome to Boss Up with Boz. We have the famous Bozoma Saint John in the building. Like, this is the hugest thing I think that Storable will ever encounter. So today what we're doing is we're going to have 3 parts to this. We're going to have getting to know Boz personally, because it all starts with the foundation. You don't get to the success without knowing the person first. Then we'll get into the successes, how you can boss up, and then we'll do a Q&A. So I hope y'all came prepared with your questions. If not, I need you to think of something, because this is like a once in a lifetime opportunity, okay? So let's go ahead and dive on it. All right, cool. So let's move into the next one. So this is a very significant date. I'm going to start with this, okay? Because I have to. On this very day last year, I met Bozoma Saint John. And yes, I know that's crazy, right? Crazy. And it's the same day that okay, you just so happen to have availability on the day that most people on the job had an availability on the day we met last year. So that is amazing. And I had Meet Bozoma Saint John on my list of impossibles. And I remember I told you this in the book club, but you were on my impossibles list. And I felt like if I could put an impossibles list together for God, nothing's impossible for him. And so that's just my truth, my story. So I give it as it is. But putting that on my impossibles list, it became possible. And here we are. The next year, I'm in a totally different space since last year. And I remember when I met you, I said, I'm going to see you again, because I wasn't like where I needed to be. And you said, yes, you will. You'll see me again. And here we are. So thank you so much. And thank you to Ms. Vanessa, who is my grandmother, but she's amazing etiquette, professional, expert, retired, and awesome in everything that she does. She's excellent. And she introduced me to Ms. Bozoma here, and it has completely shifted my world. So thank you to Ms. Vanessa. Thank you, Ms. Boz. Yeah, I had to say that there. This has just been a full circle moment. So thank you.
Right. Talk about a testimony.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah, you found my tablet and everything. So
good.
Let's go ahead and give Boz her bio. I want you guys to know exactly who Bozoma is before we dive into our first section. So I'm gonna read her bio here. Bozoma Saint John is a Hall of Fame inducted marketing executive, entrepreneur, and author of her memoir, The Urgent Life. And she is worthy of the Harvard Business School case study written about her career titled Leading with Authenticity and Urgency. She is a dynamic and influential business leader who has consistently broken barriers and shattered glass ceilings throughout her career in various industries, including roles as the global CMO of Netflix, CMO of Endeavor, CBO of Uber, head of marketing of Apple Music and iTunes, and head of music and entertainment marketing at PepsiCo. With her distinctive style, fearless leadership, and commitment to making the world a more inclusive place, come on, ERG, Bozoma Saint John continues to leave an inedible mark on the business world and beyond. Her work has been lauded and awarded with notable recognition, including but not limited to induction into the Marketing Hall of Fame in 2022, induction into the American Advertising Federation Hall of Achievements in 2014, induction into Billboard's Women in Music Hall of Fame. Come on, y'all. It has been included in Fast Company's Most Creative People in 2013, Hollywood's Reported Women of Entertainment Power 100 list, and crowned as the world's most influential CMO by Forbes in 2021. Listen, y'all, she is a powerhouse vocal advocate. We give it up for her. She is a trailblazer and life changer. Let's start session one. Y'all get off the mic real quick and welcome Miss Bozoma Saint John. Thank you.
What an intro. Yes. Welcome.
I mean, let's go.
Let's go.
Energy.
We're excited. All right, y'all. All right, so we're going to go back on mute. We're going to go into session one, which is going to be Boss Beginnings, okay? So, Boz, I read your book and listened to it. This was like a life-changing experience because you have to go through things to get where you currently are. You know, sometimes people think that success is overnight or they can purchase their success, but there's no longevity. And so you've been doing this for over 20 years. But with that, it came with a lot of losses. Well, some people, you know, consider losses as lessons. And so with this, I wanted to start our question or getting to know you section with, you know, with you going through the traumas that you've gone through, what would you have said to your younger self now about going through trauma while also navigating corporate life?
Well, first, thank you so much. I appreciate being here. I appreciate the intro and the excitement. It feels very good to have it. And if you do me a favor, actually, would you mind putting us all back on the screen? I usually like to see everybody
No problem.
so that it feels more intimate. Yes, there we go.
There we go.
Because I definitely want to be able to know who I'm speaking to. You know, I don't know what I would have said to my younger self. You know, I'm often asked that question and I'm stumbled by it because I think there's something to the unknown, you know, which means that you have to really act on faith. You have no idea what the outcome is. And so what you're doing is that you're acting in a way that is hopeful, you know, which gives you a desire to get up the next day. If we all knew what was going to happen next week, we may not be as energized, right? Because you're like, oh, well, it's inevitable. It's going to happen anyway. It's the same reason why it's like, you know, I don't want a crystal ball. I don't want to have my 80-year-old self tell me what's going to happen or give me advice on how to manage anything, honestly, you know? And so even though I recognize that often we ask that question because we're like, oh, the lessons we would have learned and the ways we would have done life differently or would have approached life differently, come what may, triumphs or tragedies or traumas or, you know, the mountaintops or the surprises when you wake up and it's like, oh, you're going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Like that is the kind of thing that makes life, you know, what it is, right? It makes life so exciting and it makes you hopeful. At least it makes me hopeful. So I think if anything, if I were to go back, you know, to my younger self and give advice, it would just be to keep moving, you know, and stay inspired by the unknown. I think it can feel very scary when you're not sure about what's happening, but that's actually where all of the magic lies. That's where all the inspiration lies. And so it's the same reason why I don't make 5 and 10-year plans. You know, everybody has like their hashtag goals and stuff like that. I don't do that, you know, because I find that the unknown is so much more inspiring. It can be anything. You know, why plan it? You don't even know what's coming for you. So I think that's part of the reason why I've been able to be successful, because I didn't have a plan. And so when it came time to jump ship or make a decision about something that was totally unrelated to what I was doing, I didn't turn it down because of quote unquote plan that I had, right? Or I didn't go running to somebody for advice because I was like, oh, well, they don't know either. They have no idea what's coming. So it allowed me to remain inspired and also continue being surprised at life. And I think that's just a much more exciting way to live.
I love that. And I feel like a lot of us have feared the unknown, and it has kept a lot of us from moving forward. I remember there was actually an interview where you were saying that it's not the fear of, jumping out. It's facing tomorrow, like what tomorrow looks like. So as far as like us corporately here, I know you went through, the loss of Peter, and you had to still show up at work. So what kind of advice would you give some of us here while we're facing grief, while we're facing hardship? How do we show up, and how do we still try to perform? Do you even suggest that we still try to push beyond what we're currently experiencing?
No, I don't. I think there's, we've all said it, right? Which is just like this moniker of being strong is such a lie. It's like it's kept us from actually dealing with our traumas and having vulnerability, and even though you think you're being strong, actually you're deteriorating all of your emotional synapses. So it's like the natural things that keep us human and keep us safe, right? It's like think about all those natural reactions that you have. When you're walking down a dark alley, all of your senses go up, right? Your eyes get sharper, your ears get sharper, those little hairs on your arms stand up so you can feel any movement that is coming towards you, right?
Yeah.
I think it's the same for when we're facing any kind of trauma or loss. It's like going in a dark alley. Everything gets sharper. And so why not use that? It's a vulnerable place to be. You don't feel safe. You don't feel confident. You're stepping gingerly, right? Like who's ever like you get into a dark alley, you're not running.
Yeah.
You're not running through it. You might run backwards, you know what I mean? But you're not running through it because you don't know what's going to be on the ground. You don't know what's going to trip you up. And so most of us are walking gingerly. All of our senses are heightened. And so I think of trauma much in the same way, that you're walking through a dark alley, some dark, dark, dark times, regardless of what it is. It doesn't have to be, death of a loved one. It can be the loss of a job. It can be the loss of a relationship. It can be the loss of, hope, dream, aspiration. It can be the loss of trust. It can be the loss of so many things that we grieve. And the idea that in those moments, your senses are sharper, so much sharper, and so that's the way that I look at it versus like, oh, let me be strong. I'm not strong in those moments, but my senses are sharper though. I feel things a little more acutely. And so that's what I have used then to help push me through. Because the thing is that at those times, right, what is good for you and what is not good for you. Like if you're walking through a dark alley and you hear a sound over to the left, what you gonna do? Move over to the right. You know what I mean? You feel a movement come whoosh, go past you, you're gonna duck, right? Like you don't know what's coming. And so why don't we treat trauma the same way? Or any kind of darkness in your life the same way? Your senses are heightened. And so when somebody says something to you that feels like a blow, that's probably somebody you need to avoid. If you are going through a dark time and your job feels like, that crashing sound on the side there, probably divert. So I've just used my traumas to help me become more in tune with what's happening around me. It's become quite easy then for me to identify situations that are good for me, situations that are bad for me, people who are good for me, people who are bad for me, and utilize all of that vulnerability, because you really have to be in a vulnerable space in order to have the senses heightened. It doesn't come from a place of strength. When you are strong, it don't matter who's coming towards you, right? When you're in a place of strength, it doesn't matter if somebody's running full speed towards the center of you. You're going to stand there like a brick wall. And you're like, oh yeah, I want you to come over here. Some of us did that like on the playground, in elementary school, where you're like, yeah, give me what you got, and you're standing strong. Your senses aren't, you're not picking up the things around you that are going to hurt you or help you. And so I think that place of vulnerability, when you're in darkness is actually a superpower that we should lean into a little bit more.
Man, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I think we're all trained to be the superhero or still try to push, especially as Black women. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine a Black man having to always still push, even though they're also going through things. And as this ERG, y'all take note of that. If you're going through anything, it's okay to pause. And so I was listening to another one of your interviews, and you were saying that you're like in this place of just embracing silence right now. And so I had this random question that came to me early this morning. It's going to sound a little sideways, but it has a point. So as a kid, like, did you ever walk home alone?
Yeah.
You did, right? Yeah. So the quietness that you had back then, or what were you like when you were walking home? I have a point that I'm going here. Like walking home, what was Little Bo's like?
Probably maybe to the surprise of many, I was a very quiet kid.
Yeah.
You know, I was very introverted. I think my extrovert personality now is a learned behavior. You know, it's not natural to me. And so, yeah, I think, you know, walking home from school, like I remember very clearly, actually, when I was in probably kindergarten, my parents had moved us from Ghana to the US because my dad was in politics in Ghana and his government had been overthrown in one of the only coups d'etats in Ghana. And we had moved to Washington, D.C. Under political asylum. And it was right after my birthday. This is in January. I mean, I remember detail, you know? And so I was probably 6 years old. And the school I went to was, you know, down the street and around the corner from the house where we were staying. But it was wintertime. And, you know, my mom had a lot of stuff to do, lots of kids to take care of. So I had to walk home by myself. And I remember being terrified, you know, partly because, of course, this was a new land. It was snowing. It was cold. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that, like, get to the end of the street and make a left, you know, and walk down until I saw our house. And then sometimes I would, you know, ring the doorbell and nobody would be home. And so I'd have to stand there and wait for somebody to show up. So those moments, I think, are filled with a lot of not just memory, but lessons also for who I am now as an adult.
That was the connection. Come on. And that's where I was going. What was the Little Bo's like walking home to where you are now? Like, what lesson do you get from that and who you are today?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's just it, right? I feel like a lot of my career is walking in spaces that are completely unfamiliar. You know, it's like, look, when people say like, oh, you know, you're the first of this or the first of that, we always celebrate and, you know, we applaud the person, but the person walking that walk is very, very lonesome.
Teach.
You know, it is not one in which you're like, oh, okay, everybody's cheering and clapping. Yeah, but they're cheering and clapping inside the warmth of their crowds.
Right.
You know, and so for me, it's like walking past those homes where I knew people were in there, warm and probably eating snacks. And I was out here outside walking by myself in the cold, in a foreign land where people made fun of my accent and certainly didn't like the color of my skin. And that is very much like the way it is now, you know, which is that I do walk into rooms that are like foreign lands, sometimes hostile, a lot of times without people who look like me in the neighborhood, you know, and knowing that they are warm in the comfort of their numbers.
Right.
Here I am lonely, walking in mine, you know, and so I think that there is quite a lot for us to probably learn from, you know, like you said, it came to you as a question, but it is certainly one that I can draw from when I think about my life now and what it is, that there are so many parallels to that 6-year-old who was walking in the snow by herself.
That just blew my mind. Wow. Just like, you know, how you said you just go off of instinct. That question came from my gut. I had no idea. So that's amazing. Whoa, that's heavy. And it's so relatable, especially with there being a little number of us here. And that's why we have this ERG. We're coming into a space where it's not a lot of us here. And
Yeah.
so you're walking into rooms where people don't look like you. They're most likely going to push back on your ideas, probably about 99% of the time. What type of what kind of wisdom can you give to us, impart to us before we move on to this next section here? Well, I got one more question about the red pen. I'm gonna talk about the red pen moment with Spike Lee. What type of advice can you give us? And I'll actually just tie it in. When you pitched your idea to Spike Lee, you're marking up his script, and that's bold as I don't know what, but that just came natural to you. When we're doing things like that, when we're pitching ideas to the company, or we're petitioning for things, for change and things like that, what kind of advice can you give us with the amount of diversity that's here, that we can rise up to the occasion and have a red pen moment like you? And I know a lot of people haven't read the book, so if you want to overview that part of your life, you can. I'm cool with it. But I also want that wisdom as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe I'll answer it differently, right? Which is that because there's just been so many moments where, I have to pitch ideas or, make a case for a strategy that is not known, to people, context that is not familiar to the audience. And again, this is probably lessons from childhood. Like I said, the way that I am is a learned behavior, right? Which is that it is built out of a lot of movement when I was a kid, So for instance, like I said, we came to the US first when I was 5, returned to Africa because my parents are very, very black, blackity black, and we're going back to the continent. But returned again when I was 12. And the lessons that I learned at that time were not about assimilation, because I think a lot of us are trying to assimilate into spaces that are not like us, right? Because you want to be liked, you want to be lauded, you want to be promoted, you want to be all the things. So you feel like you have to assimilate. And assimilation comes in many different forms. It's not just like, oh, you want to talk like this sometimes so that your voice doesn't rise.
Yeah.
Sit on your hands so that you don't gesture, or not bring up any examples that are too black because you don't want to offend anybody, or you just want to seem as if you're, open to every kind of experience. Hell, sometimes you don't want to talk about what you did over the weekend because you're afraid it might be too cultured. Right? Even in small conversations before you get the meeting going.
Yeah.
And so when I was 12, the big lesson that I learned was that, look, again, my parents moved us to Colorado Springs, Colorado. And as I already told you, they're super blackity black, and they weren't about to assimilate and not let us assimilate, even though they appreciated where they were. Right? So again, it's a very complex idea when we're translating sort of these experiences, right? You don't have to decide not to assimilate, meaning that you hate the place you are. That is not the point. Being proud of being Black and being African in a place like Colorado Springs, Colorado, didn't mean I hated Colorado. It didn't mean that. It just meant that I loved myself. That's all. And so when I finally broke through the popular girl crew and was able to invite some of them over to my house for that Friday night, pizza and movie hangout, and all these little white girls were coming over. And I asked my mom if we could get some McDonald's or order Domino's, get some soda or something, chips. And she said, no. Now that she said you have McDonald's money, she didn't say that.
Right.
No, they're going to eat what we eat.
Ooh.
They're going to eat our food.
Ooh.
And I started crying and hollering, throwing myself on the ground like, oh, no, you don't understand. At school, I get bullied. Yeah. At school, they don't like me. At school, they think I eat monkey brains. At school, they think we run around here naked. At school, they think that what they see on TV with distended bellies and flies on eyes are the only ways that we know how to be. That
Mm,
fashion didn't come from Africa. Textiles didn't come from Africa. Rhythms didn't come from Africa. Gold didn't come from Africa. Diamonds didn't come from Africa. The ebony that you're sitting on didn't come from Africa. They think we have nothing.
Yeah.
And so I need to show them everything.
Everything.
And she said, okay, well, the way we're going to do it is we're going to make a feast of our food. Because when those people come to your house, they need to eat your food. They need to speak your language. They need to abide by your rules.
oh, yes.
Now, when you go outside and you go to their house, then it's okay to do the things that they're doing. But you never, ever, ever assimilate and pretend as if where you come from is not important. And it's the same way that I think about the ways in which we defend our strategies or our ideas or whatever else that we are trying to get a group of people who don't come from the places we come from, who don't understand our language, who don't understand our culture, who put raisins in casseroles and things. Look, they may not understand everything that we're doing, but the point is that we don't assimilate. We don't assimilate. How can you be special if you're just trying to blend into the walls?
Right.
How will you ever stand out? And the truth of the matter is that this incredible uniqueness that we have is what actually drives us apart from everybody else. And so the ideas that we pitch, the strategies that we have, they cannot be divorced from the truth of who we are, because it's actually what makes us so great. You know, it's like even now as I sit here, right? I've been retired, quote unquote, from corporate life for 2 years. And you know, I'm still getting the phone calls, you know, got one earlier this week that said, hey, would you consider X, Y, and Z company? And the truth is that I won't. Not because, you know, it's like, I don't want another corporate job. I really don't actually, but it is also because I know why they are coming for me. It's because I have a very unique perspective.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't come across if I had assimilated into everything else that every other CMO was or is.
That's good.
You know, my phone doesn't ring unless I'm special, right?
Yes.
And so the thing that made me afraid in the past about bringing recommendations or strategies that were steeped on my history and my own personal experiences are the same reasons why they're asking for me today. So that list of accomplishments that you rattled off, it's like the reasons why I am Forbes #1 most influential CMO isn't because I didn't pretend not to be Black or a woman or a widow or first generation American. It's because I brought all of that to the table.
Yes.
That's what makes me stand out. Because if I had tried to be everybody else, if I had tried to assimilate into everybody else's perceptions of what I should be, they could call somebody else to do it. And that's not what I ever want to be. So I recognize that it's not easy. Believe me, I know that. It's very, very lonesome. So like 6-year-old Bose who's walking by herself and watching everybody else in their warm homes, it is lonesome and it is terrifying. But the truth of that, you won't have any greatness unless you're able to do that. You have the option to walk into the warm home, but are you brave enough to walk by yourself?
Wow. That's good.
So good. Whoa. All right, we're going to transition there. That was amazing. Oh my. Wow. I'm going to chew on that. Miss Vanessa, I'm going to let you take it from here. That was heavy.
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay. That was very good. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Bose, I'm so honored to be here.
Thanks.
I feel like I know you because I used to sit up and listen to your interviews till 4 o'clock in the morning. And it literally, not lying, changed my life. And it gave me the freedom to be myself. And I was like, where was she when I was in corporate? I didn't have a role model or someone to tell me, be yourself. It's okay. When the general manager came to me and said, they told me I don't command presence when I walk into a room.
Ooh.
Here's my credit card, go out, buy me outfits, and teach me how to command presence. So I was responsible for her appearance, as well as, her presentations and all those things, but you can't teach a person confidence. So what I love about you is that you're very confident in who you are. And, as a result of that, you are the diplomat ambassador for Ghana, and you were responsible for, I'm giving you credit for this, I hope it's true, Kamala Harris, Vice President.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah, visiting Ghana.
Mhm.
Yes. And also I saw you at one of her parties at her house. But, that is so inspiring to me where you are, you can talk about the diaspora. I'm trying to, learn about that. But why is it important for us to know our origin, to know that the first woman was Black, and that, Ghana is a very wealthy country, Africa, where all the gold and all the other, jewels and precious diamonds and jewels are? Why is it important for us to know who we are, where we came from, and also what keys can you give us to understand our importance, to know our worth, and to demand compensation for it?
Miss Vanessa, how much time do we have?
I know, right?
We can extend this.
Because let me tell you, I'm about to go. That was a great setup, and thank you so much. I really feel what you said, and I'm so honored, honestly, by what you said about listening even to my interviews and all of that. It's I think maybe it can seem as if that's just like a natural part of it, like, oh yeah, I'm sure people listen, but no, that's not true. Oftentimes I'm just like, does anybody even care what I'm saying? Like, does it even matter? So I appreciate you very much. Thank you. Now I will say this, and again, this is taken from, my of course, my own personal experiences, but also what I've learned from others, right? And I'll start here, which is that when I met the president of Ghana in 2017, we were at the UN General Assembly. He had just given a speech to the General Assembly, convincing them or proposing that 2019 would be marked as the year of return, because it would mark 600 years since the beginning of the transatlantic slave trade. So in 1619, the first recorded African outside of the continent of Africa was in Jamestown, Virginia. And incidentally, there's also a Jamestown in Ghana. And so he made the demand that 2019 be recognized as the year of return, and that all people of African descent should be welcome to the continent. Of course, he made that statement, and I was at the General Assembly also being awarded at the same time, not for being Ghanaian, but for my business acumen. And I decided to give my award speech in my native language, which of course was shocking to everyone because I hadn't planned to do that. I was listening to his speech and felt inspired, and I was like, that's what I'm gonna do. And I came off the stage and he asked me what I am doing to help the continent. Now, the funny thing is, at the time, of course, I was like, well, I'm being me. That's what I'm doing. I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, you see all these awards and accolades, you know what I'm saying? And breaking these glass ceilings, I'm just being. And he said something to me that he's since repeated in other meetings, in other public spaces, but it changed my life forever, because he asked me how difficult it is to be Black and in these spaces. And I said, well, most days it's almost impossible. Most days I have to really work myself up to go back into these rooms every single day, into hostile environments, places where I'm manipulated or, made to feel small, and still show up in excellence above and beyond what other people do. And most of the time, I still don't get my credit.
Yes.
Even the credit you see, I deserve more.
Right.
And he said to me, he was like, well, then I need your help. Because he said, until the continent of Africa is respected, no person of African descent anywhere will be respected. And it shook me, because it took me back to 6-year-old Bose,
Yeah.
12-year-old Bose, seeing the images on TV, going to my friends' houses and seeing, the picture of the African child on their fridge that said 1 cent a day to feed them, and knowing that they were associating this Black face to be worth a penny. And that didn't matter if my name was Bozoma, or my name was Kyla, or my name was Vanessa, or my name was Jasmine, or my name was Thomas. It didn't matter. Because all they saw was that Black face, and it's worth a penny less than them. And so when he said that, it just also brought to light all of these trials and challenges that we have in this country as Black people, and knowing that it all stems from the lack of respect of the continent. And so it really birthed a fire in me to change that. Now, look, I'm not going to sit here and lie to you and say, oh, yeah, I knew from that moment that I could do it. No, I didn't know that. All I knew was that what he was saying on that political stage wouldn't translate to consumers, wouldn't translate to an audience, because that's what I do, right? I make serious, heavy concepts sexy. That is my talent. I take pop culture and I make you think that whatever it is that I'm selling to you is the sexiest thing alive. I said, okay, then that's what I'm going to do. We got to make the continent sexy. We got to make Ghana feel like freaking Saint-Tropez, because people think that like you're going to come and you're going to be starving and people are going to be sitting here begging you for wells, and you're going to take pictures with orphans, and that's all you can do. But again, it's like, look, nightlife is popping, fashion is popping, food is popping, music is popping. Like, so for me, it felt like that was what needed to be accomplished. And so part of my decision to even start doing the work pro bono, by the way, so in addition to the corporate jobs I was already doing, was that I was saving myself and then saving everybody else around me, knowing that I'm in a unique position. And this is why, again, we have to be so in awe and in love with our own stories. Because what greater position could I be in as someone who is from the continent and from the United States of America, to sit in a seat where I could translate both, where you hear me talk, and if you didn't know my name, you'd be like, oh, where's she from? Like, she's from somewhere in the US, because my accent now makes me an American. My experiences as a teenager are American. My home life and the food I eat is Ghanaian. And so I'm in a unique position to be able to say, oh, wait, these lies that they've been telling us that we don't belong together, that Africans on the continent, Africans in the diaspora should be at war with each other. Somehow, the idea of being African is shameful. And therefore, you wouldn't want anything to do with it if you're not from the continent. Or somehow that we should perpetuate this idea that we shouldn't like each other. And sorry, I'm going to curse, but it's a load of shit. It really is. And so, I took it kind of on myself as well, aside from the strategy, to say, okay, look, if you want to go, come with me. I'm going to show you my version. And so it's like mano a mano. I'm like, girl, you said you want to go to Africa, let's go. I'll come with me. And so that's why it's like, by the time, and I've known Kamala a long time, but by the time, she was getting ready for her state visits, and she hadn't been to Africa as the vice president yet. Been to a lot of places, and look, I'm not going to criticize her in public, but I was like, girl, what you doing? Over here, we took state visits to Paris, though, right? We took state visits to Rome, though, right? We took state visits to Hong Kong, though, right? Like, where's our cry on the list? And so, yeah, I took my butt over there when she decided that Ghana would be on the list. And it was actually quite a triumphant moment when at the state dinner, they played the Ghanaian national anthem, and I stood up and had my hand on my chest and sang the song. And then when they played the American national anthem, I continued standing and sang that song too. And I felt like, yeah, this is what it means to be diasporan, that we can operate in both spaces fearlessly and in full celebration of who we are.
Yes. Wow. So when you decided that you were going to hire your staff, you said it was important for them to show up as their full selves every day and to make sure that the spaces where they were safe and comfortable.
Yeah.
How is that possible in corporate America today? How is that possible? And what is the importance? You talked about this. Every time you talk about surrounding yourself or getting a team of people who support you, like say you're going to have a big staff meeting, and before your boardroom meeting, you get your plans together and you rally a team around you to support. Okay, this is where we're going. This is A, B, C, or D. We're going to be, together on this idea. I need your support. How important is that for that to take place in the business arena as well as in your family? Because I know you have Lovey and a whole network of so many others. I wish I had that network, but I'm working on it, to help you and to support you. And just speak about how important it is for us to be stronger as one than it is for us to be separate. And as I go up, I'm going to bring you with me, and it snowballs.
Yes. Well, that's a dynamic question as well. The idea of showing up as your full self is it's absolutely terrifying. Again, I think we say it so casually, just like, oh, be unapologetic. People want to throw this stuff around, be authentic. They want to throw it around, and it's hard in practice. And it's harder to do it every day.
Yes.
Some days I just want to sit down and nobody talk to me. Please don't even look at me. Let me wear my hoodie, and I don't want to show up as myself today. How about that? I don't want to fight today.
Right.
It's like sometimes you just like, hey, look, I can't even be Black today because it's just too damn hard. So let me just sit down and just be quiet, So again, I think there is this idea of grace. And that's what I approach my staff with, and myself, give myself a lot of grace, right? Because it's not every single day where you're able to carry the sword. But also I'm aware that I don't have all the answers. My perspective, as I said before, are filled with the identities who I am. It's filled with this bicultural experience. It's filled with being a woman. It is filled with being a widow. It is full of being a single mom. Like, those are the perspectives at which I see the world. And so when I write a strategy or have an idea or go into a meeting, I can't be anybody else. That's exactly who I am. Right. And so sometimes it means that I also need to get checked by other people who have other ideas. And this is I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's like, this is the whole point of diversity, inclusion, and equity, is that we can't have all of the answers. And that's why you need other people around you. However, I also recognize the fact that there's a lack of balance. And that's why I was completely unapologetic when I would load my teams of people that, when it came time to hire, I would load them with people that don't look like anybody else in the room, because I was just like, well, we're already out of balance. So the fact that I hired 5 Black women in a row at Apple, and then HR wanted to come talk to me about it, that I was like, oh, well, I'm just trying to cause balance. That's all.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That's all. But it didn't mean that I couldn't approach others for their ideas and contributions. And that actually became a very winning strategy for me, and one that I employ now, which is what you got to at the end of your question, Ms. Vanessa, is that the meeting before the meeting became ultimately important. Mm-hmm. It meant that my strategies and my ideas were seeped in my experience. So I wasn't, pretending that, look, when I went to Uber, and one of the ideas I had was about, the problem at Uber was that there was not trust in the company at the time when I went there, right? I was a chief brand officer. The brand is all by reputation. People hated the company. They were like, oh, they're misogynistic, they're racist. You're going to get an Uber and the driver's going to kidnap you and kill you. People didn't have trust in the company. And so my idea, based on my Blackness, was
Yes.
that, hey, look, we've all been in that situation. We walk into a room, we don't trust anybody in the goddamn
Nope.
room, okay? And so I was like, look, the way that you can get to trust somebody is like, look, when I get in, I'm gonna start talking to you.
Yep.
I'm hoping that like by getting to know you, I can figure out whether or not you're a psychopath, okay?
Yes.
To protect myself. So I hired my best friend, Carrie Champion, who is an amazing, she was a sports journalist and now she's doing other more cultural things, but I hired her to be the Uber driver in a commercial. I talked to my good friend, LeBron James, and
LeBron.
said,
Yeah.
hey, look, he was trying to start a production company in Hollywood. Nobody would hire him because they
Wow.
were like, he's an athlete, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So I said, all right, friend, we're going to do this together. And yes, that was based on my own experiences. It wasn't based on the math that the data analytics team had given me at Uber. It was based on my own understanding of my friends and where I come from. And I said, if I can put these two people in a car together and let them start talking, they're going to talk very Black, but it's going to speak to the larger issue at hand, which is about trust. That's when LeBron got in the Uber and started talking about his opinions on politics. It was the first time he ever talked about that, talked about Trump. He talked about what it was like to be a wealthy Black man in America, how he had to explain to his children when they wrote the N-word on his gates in Brentwood. And it got Laura Ingraham at Fox News heated.
Shut up and dribble.
Correct. And LeBron and I went on TV and started attacking her.
Yeah.
I was like, we're not going to lay down for this.
Yeah.
But the idea for me was that was based on my personal experiences. And I knew that I had the confidence that it was going to affect the outside world because I knew that what we were talking about, they would understand. It did not work internally. Okay? I lost my job over that commercial.
Wow.
It was a devastating time because I understood the power of what I was doing.
Yes.
But I was so vilified because one of the other senior executives in the C-suite said, why do we have to talk about all this Black stuff?
Typical.
And I said, well, of course we do, because people don't trust us. And I know what it's like to walk around the world not trusting anybody because of this body I'm in. And so I know that if I can get into a safe space and I can tell people about what it's about, the trust that can be in here, I know it'll affect the brand at the end of the day. And I'm the goddamn chief brand officer.
Come
so
on.
do it my way. Well, we had big disagreements and I ultimately was fired. But my point in that story is that I am very proud of that work. And born out of that work was LeBron's statement, more than an athlete. Out of that work was born his company, Uninterrupted, which now closes about $1 billion in Hollywood on deals. And if I hadn't stood up for us, that would not exist. I had a conversation with Colin Kaepernick shortly after I was fired from that job, and I was so pissed. I was so angry. I just wanted to go and kill everybody. And surprisingly, he told me to calm down. He said that what the world needed of me was a calm assassin.
Wow.
That I am one that can go into rooms and people like me.
Wow.
And that I have more power to change those rooms because I come in and throw bombs in it and then run off. And I recognize that power. And so now when people say things like, oh, well, you've been at this job and then that job and then that job, I'm like, yeah, exactly. I went there and threw bombs down, cleared the room. And then other people can come in behind me and do the work. And that is okay with me. And so that idea of being able to be exactly who I am, bring my full self, is both a detractor now and also a real pull. Because when people say, oh, well, we need somebody who's going to be exciting and disruptive, guess who they call?
You, of course.
And so why not then embrace that as a whole identity, because it is who I am. I'm born
Yes.
out of this disruption. And so
Yes.
I'm not afraid of that. And I do think that this idea of bringing your full self is dangerous. It is.
Mm.
But who better to do it? Do you know what our ancestors went through?
Yes.
And so it's like, why would we be afraid of this?
Right.
Now, they
Right.
didn't do it without fear. They didn't do it without tears. They didn't do it without all of the things, like, so unfair.
Yes.
But there's no way that I have this opportunity and not show up with them represented. There's no way.
Mm.
It's so
That's-
disrespectful.
That's
You know,
amazing.
and so for me, I'm like, there's no way that our ancestors survived what they survived and that we show up any less. There's no way.
Thank you.
There's
That's
no
really
way.
good.
Like, how? What they went through, and then you're allowed to be born? Like, 12 generations back, that's 4,000 people that it took for you, single individual, to be here. How
Exactly.
dare you
How dare you?
not show up as your full
Mm.
self? How dare you?
That's so good.
What they survived in order for you to live. So I see myself the same way. I'm like, this is why I go into these rooms and I am this. Because I'm
Yeah.
like, those 4,000 people that are out here,
Mhm.
you know, and again, that's another lie that's been perpetuated to us about, you know, our connection with the African continent, is that somehow we don't share the same ancestors. So freaking confusing to me.
Really?
I got in a online fight a few years ago with a group. They call themselves the Descendants of American Slaves. And I was so pissed because I was just like, but what do you mean? They're all our ancestors, all of us.
Really?
Because
Yeah.
when people are being kidnapped and stolen, it was somebody's mom, somebody's
Right.
brother, somebody's sister. They weren't just like single individuals. They belonged to a community.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that was also my grandmother,
Exactly.
even if I was born on the continent.
Yes.
You know, and so for me, when I say ancestors, I'm talking about our shared ancestors, all of us.
Right.
And so, yes, what happened during the Middle Passage, what happened during Jim Crow, what happened during the Civil Rights Movement, what happened freaking with Rodney King, what happened last week? How dare you
How dare you?
not show up as your full self? And
Wow.
so for me, it's the only energy that I
Yes.
carry.
It's good. So convicting. So convicting. And I'm gonna, this is my last comment. I love that you said on your epitaph, it's gonna read, or this is what people are gonna say about you. She was not afraid to cause disruptions. Was not afraid to cause disruptions. I love that. I love your boldness, Miss Bozoma Saint John. This book is so
Yes.
amazing. I cried.
Thank you.
I laughed. I felt challenged to rise to the next level. I wanted this book so bad that I ordered the Audible because I wanted to be one of the first ones. And I did leave my my comments on Amazon for you.
Thank you.
But this book, you guys, you got to get it. It's called The Urgent Light. And Bose will tell you what the urgent light means to her, because I was thinking originally when I saw the title that it was about time, but it has nothing to do with time, does it? And this is just an amazing book, you guys, and you got to get it. You will love it. You won't be able to put it down. I think it took me a couple of days to get through it, but I wanted to stretch the time out because I didn't want it to end. But Bose, kudos to you for your transparency. Kudos to you for just sharing your life with us, and even for putting your life out here for us to see, and being a trailblazer so that we can walk in your footsteps. So thank you so much. I thank God for you every day that I met you. Literally, I say, God, thank you for allowing me to meet her, to hear her, and to hear her voice, and to meet you at the bookstore was just, it was a dream of a lifetime. So I thank you. Thank you so much. Remember, guys, get The Urgent Life. This is an amazing book. Amazing.
Thank you. I so appreciate that. You know, I'll leave with this, which is that you know, in the beginning of the book, I quote one of my favorite authors, Diane Ackerman.
Yes.
And it paraphrases to say, I don't want to get to the end of my life and just have lived the length of it. I want to have lived the width of it.
Right.
And you're right, that urgency for me is not about time, it's about intention. And so the intention by which you're living You know, is it really the life that you want to be living? And I'm not asking that as a theoretical question or, you know, something for you to ponder later. It's like a right now question, right? Because urgency to me is that I'm living this life because I want to experience all of it. You know, in the book, I document how my husband's death, he was 4 days from his 44th birthday when he died of cancer. And while that may make me sometimes want to hide in a cave and be fearful of life, you know, we have a daughter. I am terrified when I leave the house.
She's
Because
beautiful.
I'm like, what if she's left here by herself? I think about that all the time. But what I will tell you, and the power in living urgently, is not that I'm trying to cram everything into these days that I have. It is that I am intentional in doing the things that I actually want to do. Because I want to come to the end of my life, regardless of when that is. Regardless of if you think it's like, oh, too short, or you think I lived a long and healthy life. I want to come to the end of my life and have done the things I wanted to do. Not that necessarily I have to do everything, but that nothing stopped me from doing the things I want to do. Not a boss who told me that I wasn't ready for the promotion. Not a friend who said, oh, girl, don't wear that. Not a man who said, I'm not ready for that commitment just yet. None of those things. Is that I want to live the width of my life. And so that means that sometimes people give me advice that is not necessary for my life. They have the right intentions. They have the love for me. They want to protect me, but they are not in my shoes, and they never will be, and they never can be. And so for you, that's what I'll leave with, which is that, are you living an urgent life? Are you actually living the life you want to live? Please don't think that like, oh, you know what? I'll do that when I retire. Or I'll do that when I get the next bonus. Or I'll do that when my kids are older. The question is that, are you living a life that you are happy with?
Yes.
Because the thing is that you're thinking, oh, I'll do it later when I retire. And I'm not even saying that like, oh, what happens if you die tomorrow? I'm not saying that. It's just like, why waste all these years in your unhappiness?
Yes.
Why be a bitter parent who is waiting for the time for your kids to leave before you find your joy? Why not be a joyful parent right now?
Exactly.
And if you are stuck in a situation, whether that is work or personal, that makes you feel incomplete, that makes you feel like the life you're living is not whole, then that's what I'm asking you to do, is to reconsider the choices that you're making, reconsider the life that you're in, take that bold step, change it, because we all have the power to do so. So that's what I'm asking you to do, is just to live an urgent life.
Wow. Beautiful.
Oh, y'all give it up. That was amazing.
It really was.
Y'all can unmute. Y'all can
Thank you so
unmute.
much.
I know we hit our 2 o'clock. I'm sorry we weren't able to do Q&A, guys.
Oh, I
but
know.
this was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
My
Wow.
pleasure. Thank
Really
you for
appreciate
having
you
me.
coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Thomas.
thank you,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you so much. It was really wonderful to be here. I appreciate the energy. I appreciate the invitation. I don't take it lightly or for granted. And you know, you're part of the width of my day today. I'm intentionally here. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you so much. Super
Yeah.
awesome. And thank you, Vion, for putting this together.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank
Just
you.
bought the audiobook.
Listen, because I'm going online to do the same thing right now.
Thank you so much. I
She's
really
actually
appreciate it.
reading the audiobook, guys. So it's not like a robot voice.
Yeah.
It's her.
It's her.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh
Yes.
wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So enjoy. You'll hear my voice a lot then. This is the warm up.
Yeah.
Oh.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you so
Okay,
much.
y'all. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Much well.
Bye.
Hi.